Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin are in Milan for the Olympics. I believe Tage has a much better chance of winning a gold medal in the next couple of weeks, and I'll tell you why. Coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Monday edition, this freezing cold Monday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you want to listen to your podcast. You can check us out there. Be sure to like and subscribe us wherever you're listening on YouTube as well. If you are watching the show, you can watch the show. Hit us up there. And if you would like ad-free versions of this show, maybe you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, and you see that little button that says Everydayers Club. That's ad-free versions of this show. You want to sign up for that? You get access to our Locked On Sabres Discord and other perks. You go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a Monday. The Sabres off this week, and the Olympics will get rolling in a couple of days. We'll talk a lot about that today, talk some trades throughout the week, as well as we have until the 25th until the Sabres are back in action. And I know that we're going to be missing them over the next couple of weeks, but we do have our fill with Olympic hockey. Tage will be playing. Rasmus Dahlin will be playing as well. And today on the show, looking at all the teams, but especially Tage and Team USA, Dahlin and Team Finland, and what their chances are. I'll go through the rosters a little bit, my opinion on how these teams currently set up. Right now, Canada and the U.S. atop the odds, and that is normal. What about Sweden? They've dealt with some injuries. Finland's dealt with some injuries as well. So I think everyone wants Team USA to win. Everybody wants to see Tage get the gold and play a significant role along the way to doing that. We do have line combinations to talk about, by the way, today, and an interesting role for Tage to discuss. For Sweden, I think if the U.S. were to be out of it and Sweden was in there, if it was Sweden, Canada in the final, I think all Sabre fans would have a pretty clear, definitive rooting interest. You'd be rooting for Dahlin, you'd be rooting for Sweden, but that of course will come second fiddle to Team USA. So lots of Olympic talk coming up today on the show, and I'm very excited for Wednesday. How about a 3:00 schedule, basically? A lot of these games in the middle of the afternoon. I like that, but I have my morning radio job, so I'm a little out of the ordinary. That's a perfect time for me. You might hate it because you're at work, but I do like that we're getting the games not at 2:00 in the morning, which I think is a big reason why they didn't go to the last two Olympics. So all that coming up today on the show. Women's hockey tournament is already underway, but the men's hockey still has a couple of days to go until we get there. And before we do get into, the odds and, Canada and the U.S. and how they stack up against each other, I'm very interested in the rest of these teams, by the way. We'll save that for the last part of today's show. You've got a lot of former Sabres playing on whether it's Germany or whether it's Latvia, obviously with Samuel Girgensons, and there are a lot of other guys, too, to get to. Tage's role. Let's start there. Tage Thompson. I think there might have been a little bit of a fear with me that USA was going to do something dumb, because I read an article of Daily Face-Off today about how the U.S. would be the favorite if they hadn't mismanaged the roster. And I think there were some things they could have done worse, but there are great, talented players that they left home because they believe that they have to have one line that will get run over every time they're out there on the ice. They could have rolled a fourth line that included Jason Robertson and Cole Caulfield on it, but they just think they got to have one line that's bad. It's a weird thing in hockey. You could just have four lines that always possess the puck, but nope. All right, fine. So we have line combinations, and the skilled player that is going to get scratched, which always feels like that was inevitable for this team. I guess I worried a little bit that it would be Tage, and you didn't really know who would it be. But Tage of the World, Tage's season so far this year, Tage's size, Tage's positional flexibility, playing center, playing the wing. He has experience playing on the penalty kill. He's not done that this year for the Sabres, but especially when Don Granato was the head coach, he did play on the penalty kill a lot. He has a long reach. He's definitely not going to throw his body in front of shots Maybe at the Olympics he would. Kind of hope for Sabres' sake he doesn't. But he's got that too. So versatility, which I think would help keep him in the lineup. And sure enough, he was not the guy that was scratched. On day one of practice for USA, it was JT Miller, who I see as a fourth liner if he's playing. I also see as not being one of the most talented 12 players on the team. Day two of practice, he was in, and we saw Clayton Keller out of the lineup. Don't love that. Kyle Connor also has taken some shifts outside the rotation. So then today at practice, where's Tage playing? Dylan Larkin at center with Kyle Connor on the left and Tage on the right. Yesterday at practice, Kyle Connor was Jack Hughes. It was Larkin, Hughes, and Tage. But Connor today. And Larkin at center, Tage on the right wing has been the staple through 2 practices. And I think this is the role that Tage is going to settle into a little bit. A third line, middle six, scoring winger that also could be playing on a line that might be a little bit more defensive if Larkin, and it's going to depend who the other winger is. But right now, I think that's a talented lineup, a talented line that can possess the puck, get a lot of scoring chances, get a lot of offense. I like him with Larkin. Larkin is speed, and Connor is goal scoring and all-around offensive abilities, playmaking. I do think, though, I kind of hope they go back to the lines from yesterday because I do really love the idea of Jack Hughes playing on the same line as Tage. Jack Hughes is one of the best playmakers in the NHL. My only concern would be if they're going to commit to Larkin being that third-line center, Hughes struggled a lot playing on the wing at the Four Nations. They didn't want to put him as a top 6 center. They didn't want to put him as the third-line center. They wanted him as a winger. So when he did that, it didn't look all that good. He was down on the fourth line with Brock Nelson and JT Miller. I wonder if he'll even get to a point of being scratched at some point here. But I like the Tage and Larkin combo together. I don't know. I think maybe there's an opportunity for Tage to bump up to the line with Austin Matthews. I think Jack Eichel, Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk is like in cement. Like that line is going to stay together. I expect them to perform well. And I expect that to be the Team USA's best line. Austin Matthews skating with Jake Gensel and Matt Boldy. I like that line too. Boldy and Tage could certainly switch, though. I could totally see that being the case. So we'll see if one game goes by and one guy looks more dangerous than the other. And I also don't know where they're at with Matthews. Matthews was named the captain, but he has not had a very good year so far this year. I actually thought they should have made Eichel the captain because Eichel's been better than Matthews this year. You don't have that long-time veteran winner. You don't have a Crosby on your team to give the C to. Like Patrick Kane's not at a level anymore where he could have been on the team. And of guys that have won big on Team USA, who is it? It's Eichel, right? And it's Matthew Tkachuk. But I don't know if you want Matthew Tkachuk being captain because he's going to run around and do a lot of nonsense. So Eichel, I thought, could have been the captain. Matthews, I don't think it really matters that much. But he's struggled a lot this year. And is Boldy good for him because of physicality and creating some space that way? Or is Tage better for him because he's a more dangerous player? Not that Boldy isn't either. Boldy's good. These are, near all-star teams that we're talking about. So I think Tage probably stays with Larkin for a while. I think there's a potential, if he doesn't play well, to find himself out of the lineup for a Clayton Keller. I think that's just USA nonsense. And there's a potential for him to go up and play with Austin Matthews. But it looks like he's going to start with Dylan Larkin, and I like that for him a lot. I do not think Team USA should play him on the power play. We've talked about Tage on the power play for the Sabres' sake. They have too many guys. I mean, maybe second unit, throw him on one of the wings. In fact, they probably will do that. I didn't see line combinations of a power play at practice today, but I think that's probably going to happen. They'll at least try him out there. So, by the way, like Team USA overall and comparing them to Canada, because you go Matthews, Eichel, Larkin, Nelson. Nelson, by the way, has been awesome this year. Like, I didn't like him being named to the team, but he's been incredible so far this year for Colorado. Those are your 4 centers. That can go toe-to-toe with Canada. I think if Jack Hughes was in the Larkin spot, it might feel a little bit better, but that can do it. I think Canada, though, is better up front because they have the best 2 players in the world. they have Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon. And as good as Matthews and Eichel are, and they are as close to the caliber of center that Canada has that we've ever seen. U.S. has never been closer. Like Matthews and Eichel, I mean, it's as good as it gets, except for those two guys. And they're the best two players in the world. So you got to give the edge there to Canada. And I think because they have the best two players, I would give them the edge up front. But outside of the top two, like I go MacKinnon and McDavid above Eichel and Matthews. The rest of the forward groups, I think, is a wash. I think it's really close. But again, the U.S. is kind of hurting themselves if they're going to scratch a Clayton Keller or a Jack Hughes. I think U.S. is better on the blue line. I think they have a better defense core. Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy were together. Skate number one. Jacob Slavin and Brock Faber. I've liked Faber this year. And then Zach Werenski, who's got 20 goals, right, at defense. And Noah Hannafin on the blue line. I think their blue line is better than Canada's. I mean, Canada has Makar, similar story, right? Like, they've got the best one, and they've got good ones, but to me, outside of number one, who do you want to call the U.S.'s number one defenseman? Probably Quinn Hughes, right? Quinn Hughes and Makar. Makar's better. Pretty close gap, though. And then what about the other five? I got Devin Tays, Josh Morrissey, Colton Parayko, Drew Doughty, and Thomas Harley versus McAvoy, Slavin, Faber, Werenski, Hannafin. Give me Team USA's group. And then this is where, on paper, the U.S. blows Canada out of the water, but I don't know if we'll actually see that come to fruition because we didn't see it happen at the Four Nations. On paper, the U.S. goaltending situation is miles better than Canada. Connor Hellebuyck and Jake Ottinger. You could argue they're the best two goalies in the world. Hellebuck's been the most consistent goalie in the world for 10 years now. And then Jeremy Swayman, even as your third, I don't expect him to play, but he's been awesome this year. Canada, they're talking like Jordan Binnington is going to get back between the pipes. He's been brutal for St. Louis. Now, they also have Logan Thompson, and he's great, right? And there's a potential that he could give them some good goaltending. But if it's Binnington, you should dominate that. But two parts of this. One, that was also the case at the Four Nations, and Binnington showed up. The save he made on Matthews in overtime of the championship game, Jordan Binnington showed up in that game. So on paper, he was the lesser of two goalies. On the ice, he matched him. Also, who's to say if they start Binnington at the beginning, they won't have that position figured out by the time they would face the Americans. They, by the way, might not face Team USA, but if they do, we're talking semifinals or championship game because they don't play in the same group. So by then, they are more likely to have landed on their best goalie. It's not like you're playing them the first game of the tournament. So I think the U.S. is better on paper, depth-wise, goalie-wise, blue line-wise, but I have so much respect for McDavid and MacKinnon that I think it's right to call it a wash, to call it co-favorites. I would lean Team USA, though. Give me the goalies that I trust more. I hope Hellebuyck and Ottinger are able to show up in big games. They have had a little bit of trouble with that in the NHL playoffs, but I think on paper, they're far and away better. I would take Team USA by a hair. But I love that they have the best on best here because we finally get to see it tested. For years, the U.S. has had the talent to match Canada. We haven't seen it because they haven't gone to the Olympics. Now we get to see it. I think Tage has an amazing shot at winning a gold medal, and it speaks to the depth that U.S. team has. When we come back, before we even do that, a little bit more on Canada, the line combinations, then we'll get to Sweden and what Dahlin's role is going to look like. The other reason I would say Canada is right there with the U.S., despite the fact that I think the U.S. has a better blue line and better goaltending. The number one power play unit for Canada could win them the whole thing. McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon, Sam Reinhart, and Cale Makar. That unit alone, I don't know how many chances they'll get, what the penalty situations will be like, but if they get a lot of opportunities, they'll win. It's just that unit is so good, but I don't know how many penalties we're going to get from Canada. Also, they're doing dumb things too. Tom Wilson is on the number one line with McDavid and Macklin Celebrini. I love Macklin Celebrini. He's an MVP candidate. But Tom Wilson, waste of time. I kind of can't believe it. Marner, Sam Reinhart. You could build McDavid's perfect line mate in a lab and it would come out as Sam Reinhart. And instead, they have him on the quote-unquote fourth line with Bo Horvat and Brandon Hagel. I mean, I think it's crazy that Wilson's up there and Reinhart is down there. But good for the U.S. McKinnon was with Nick Suzuki and Brad Marchand. Sidney Crosby with Mitch Marner and Mark Stone. And then Bo Horvat, Brandon Hagel, and Reinhart. Depth-wise, like, listen, they have a great forward group, too. I think it's on par with the U.S. outside of the top two. Okay, when we come back, those are your co-favorites, in my opinion. What about Sweden? What about Dahlin's role? That when we return. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Factor. Cold days, packed schedules, big goals. That's winter. Cold, emphasis on cold, by the way. It was -9 when I woke up this morning. And when there's not a lot of time to cook, maybe you don't want to go out, eating well can feel like another thing on the to-do list, and that's where Factor comes in. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without the planning, prepping, or cooking. Factor meals are always fresh, never frozen, and they're ready in about 2 minutes. The ingredients stand out: lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, tons of variety with 100 rotating meals each week, so it never gets boring. Options like high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean diet, even the new Muscle Pro collection for strength and recovery. Perfect for busy weeks when you still want meals that support your goals without stress. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL. LockedOnNHL 50 off, excuse me. Use the code LockedOnNHL 50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. So eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Again, that's LockedOnNHL 50 off for the code at factormeals.com. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, going through the Olympics a little bit. What's Tage Thompson's chances of a gold medal? What is Rasmus Dahlin's? I think Tage has an amazing look at it. And I think it would be about as good of an accomplishment for any Sabre that I can remember. Like, what's the last Sabre to win gold? Because they haven't had one for Canada. Ryan Miller and Team USA come close, but they didn't get it done. I mean, you got to go back. In fact, I should find that. I'll find it while we're doing it. Maybe I'll have AI do it while I'm talking here. The last Buffalo Sabre to win a gold medal at the Olympics, and I want like active on the team, right? Because sure, Mike Ramsey won gold in 1980, but then he joined the Sabres a couple of years later, or played for them a couple of years later. I learned, by the way, that like 4 of those guys were on the Sabres. Anyways, let's get to Sweden. Team Sweden, Rasmus Dahlin, and again, like second best storyline from a Sabre perspective. Number 1 is Tage and Team USA winning. Number 2, easily, with all he's dealt with personally this year, if Rasmus Dahlin and Team Sweden won gold, I mean, what a moment that would be for Dahlin. I mean, it almost, because of his story this year and what he's gone through, the human element of it, it almost gets me to want Sweden to win it over even Team USA. But I think I'd have to say if the US was in it, I have to root for them. But man, Dahlin winning it would be awesome. Now, I had some complaints last year. If we rewind this show, take you back to last February, the Four Nations tournament. Everyone remembers the US and Canada games. The Swedish games. I remember watching those games and being really annoyed that Sweden didn't seem to know what they had in Rasmus Dahlin. The coach, who is not an NHL coach, didn't act like Dahlin was one of, not even just his best defensemen, not one of his 3-4 best defensemen. Dahlin played the 5th most minutes amongst Swedish defensemen last year. He played a lot of 5-on-5, but didn't play in power play situations, didn't play penalty kill situations, didn't play in overtime when they would get there, 3-on-3 situations. They didn't act like they had an all-world top 10 defenseman. They were playing, good defensemen, but Mattias Ekholm, who again is good, is not as good as Rasmus Dahlin. And he was playing more minutes in some of these games. This go round, I think you're going to see a bit of a change on that. We'll see. Does he play on the man advantage? Does he play if you go to overtime? Because I think he's their best defenseman. They have good defensemen. He's number one. And I do think the sign we saw that they might know that now, and maybe they did more due diligence, maybe they learned more about him last year. I don't know. Longer tournament, that could be a part of it. First practice for Sweden, Dahlin was on the right side, which, again, is his best position. He's better on the right, his offhand, with Gustav Forsling on the left. On paper, to me, that is Sweden's number one pair. That would be the pair that would play the most minutes. Doesn't mean he'll play power play. Erik Karlsson is probably number one unit, right? Is Dahlin number two unit, though, and also playing penalty kill? We'll see. But I think Dahlin and Forsling is that team's number one pair. Because behind them, Victor Hedman and Rasmus Andersson. Victor Hedman is just coming back from injury. I don't think he's in a state right now where you'd want to play him big minutes. Philip Broberg and Erik Karlsson, two good players, but that's not your number one pair. And then Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Lindholm are your extras. So Forsling and Dahlin, like that to me is your number one pair, which gives Dahlin a lot of opportunity to kind of carry the team. I mean, I really think you could argue that he and William Nylander are right now the best two players on the entire team. Like if they were to win gold, who's the favorite to win MVP? Because they would, I guess they don't always give it to the gold medalist. I mean, Ryan Miller won it, right? And he won silver. But if the MVP was to be on a Swedish gold medal team, like to me, it'd be Nylander or Dahlin. They'd be the top two guys I would pick. You could always pick a goalie too. But I think he's got a real shot to kind of break out here. And the bigger games he plays, I mean, playoffs will do this if the Sabres make it this year, which we expect they will. That can raise your star profile. Miller did that at the Olympics, though. Like you could do it in the playoffs or you could do it at the Olympics. Miller did it at the Olympics. And I think Dahlin's got a real shot at doing that. I think he's got the perfect partner in Gustav Forsling. I think Forsling is a great player. He is smooth. He is great in his own end. I think he's a perfect type of player that can allow Dahlin to be more aggressive up front. So I really like that pairing for him, and I hope it stays together going into their first couple games. Finland, by the way, I want to get to a little bit on Finland because, we would have been a little more focused on them if Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen had been there. He's not. Finland is dealing with a lot of injuries, and Alex Barkov is at the top of the list. I mean, you can even throw Luukkonen on that list if you want. And they're a threat, right? Their team kind of looks like an NHL team. Like in terms of caliber of player, they got some stars up front. They got like balanced players at the bottom. They got good defensemen up top, but bad defensemen on the bottom end, and like a good goalie, but a guy who's been struggling this year in UC Saros. Like I think Finland looks like an NHL roster. Like they would a playoff NHL team. But what that means is you got to play really good defensively because you're going to have less talent than the all-star level teams like the US and Canada and even Sweden. So right now, I look at Finland, and let me see if they have any line combinations out. They do. Roope Hintz, Mikko Rantanen, and Mikkel Granlund. It's even right there. Like, that's your top line. Rantanen's a superstar. So other two guys are good. Hintz especially. Sebastian Aho, Teravainen, Lehkonen, Lundell, Kakko, Lutsarainen, Haula, Armia, Tolvanen. Like, these are good players, but not enough superstars for me to be a real threat to win gold. That's not even my biggest problem. Finland's got to play a defensive style. Finland's got to win low-scoring games when they play those top teams. They don't have the blue line for it. And right now, they don't have the goalie for it if Saros is going to play at the level he's played in Nashville. But they don't have the blue line for it. They just don't. I love their top pair. Lindell and Miro Heiskanen is great. And I even like Nico Mikkola as your third guy. Your bottom three defensemen are Rasmus Ristolainen, Olli Mata, and Henri Jokiharju. It's not good enough. It's not good enough at all. So I don't think Finland medals in this tournament. And I actually kind of like Finland to be like a big disappointment. Like I would pick them right now to finish outside the top five. I think there are a couple of up-and-coming younger teams that I like more. And we'll get to them in a moment here. So Sweden and Finland. I think Sweden, favorite to be the bronze medalist. If you look at the betting odds, Canada's plus 130 to win the gold. USA's plus 190. And then you have a severe drop-off before you get to Sweden at plus 470. And then another severe drop-off before you get to Finland at plus 1,100. Sweden, the favorite to win the bronze medal going in. Could they win gold? I think they definitely could. I don't think Finland could. I think 3 teams could win the gold, and Sweden's a big underdog. When we come back, the rest of the teams, there are some things I really like about a couple of nations that have never really challenged much at the Olympics, but are getting more and more NHLers. We'll get to that when we come back here on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed-sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed-sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates a lot faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed-sponsored jobs will help your listing stand out and reach quality candidates a lot faster. Sponsored jobs will boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that'll make a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored job posts directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, more results using Indeed-sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Could use some Olympic hockey today. 5 degrees, staying inside. It'll still be cold on Wednesday, though. Team USA opens, by the way, on Thursday, but the tournament begins on Wednesday. Very quickly, before we get to the rest of the teams, the groups. If you're not familiar with the standings, and a quick thought on another reason why I think the U.S. is a co-favorite, in my opinion. They're not by the odds, but I would be betting them with Canada, is Canada's got a tougher group out of the gate. So they would be more likely to have tougher matchups when they get to, the bracket. So the reason for that, in big part, I think, is because Russia is not at this tournament. Not invited because of the war in Ukraine. No Russia. If Russia was in it, I don't know actually how this would work. They would either be with the U.S. or they would push down another good team, a better team to play with the U.S. So, Canada, they have one dog team that they'll win by 100 against. France. France, who earned qualification as the last team in. Italy got automatic qualifier. They're a non-threat. France is a non-threat at all. They're going to get smoked by 10 by Canada. But 2 pesky-ish teams with Canada, with Czechia and Switzerland. 2 of them. While as the U.S., I feel like you could argue there are none. Latvia, Germany, Denmark. I think Germany, though, has the chops to not only steal a point from the U.S., maybe push them to overtime. You got a 3-2-1 point system, so if they could get a game to overtime and cost the U.S. a point, that would be hurtful. You're trying to stay above Canada in the bracket for better matchups. Germany, though, they're the first team I want to get to here of up-and-coming hockey nation that I'll tell you right now, I have a bet. Guess I could make it my bet of the night. I have a bet on Germany to finish as the bronze medal nation for this tournament. Plus 2,200, way down the list. I didn't need to bet them to medal. I mean, to win a medal, it's not much more likely anyway. Like, they're plus 2,200. No, I guess they're plus 1,300 to win a medal. I don't think there's any possibility that they are getting to the gold medal game. So there's that. To get a medal, plus 1,300 at FanDuel. To get the bronze, plus 2,200. The reason I like them to kind of make some noise here, they have more high-end talent than they ever have by a lot, and more high-end talent to me than these other, balanced teams that have a couple of NHLers. Like the German NHLers, though, it starts with Leon Draisaitl. Leon Draisaitl is one of the best players in the world, one of the best players at the tournament, and he's your number one center. Like, that's a great starting point. And when you're comparing to teams like Slovakia and Latvia, of course, too, like they're better than those teams because of guys like Draisaitl. But it's not just him. mean, you go down to Tim Stuzle. Tim Stuzle, you could argue, Stuzle would be the best player on Switzerland. Draisaitl clearly would be. So you've got Stuzle, you've got JJ Peterka, who we know here, not a two-way player, but a great scorer. You got him. You got on the blue line, Moritz Seider of the Red Wings. Those are 4 legitimately great to very good NHL players at least. And then you have a couple of other NHL guys, not many. You have a lot of players that play in Germany, but you got Josh Szymanski who plays for the Oilers. You got Nico Sturm who plays for the Wild. And then in goal, it's another reason why I kind of like Germany to maybe be an upset bronze medalist in this tournament is Philipp Grubauer in goal. He had performed really poorly the last couple of years in the NHL. This year with Seattle, he's been great. .916 save percentage, goal saved above expected. He's doing really well. 19 starts here. He's 11-6-3 as a record. If he gets hot in this tournament, you give me like a hot power play for Germany that features Draisaitl and Seider and Peterka and Stuzle, then I could see Germany being a team that makes some noise. By the way, they have a couple of other former Sabres. Dominic Cahoon, who plays in Germany, and there's one other, Toby Reeder as well. So it's more about the top-end guys for me with Germany. A couple other teams that are possible. Czechia, of course. By the way, I think the answer to my question that I asked earlier, the last time like the U.S. or the last time a gold medalist was like on the Sabres, I think you probably have to go back to Dominik Hasek and Richard Schmelik, who won the gold with Czechia. And that might be the only time. Because 2002, Michael Peca in Canada, but Peca had just been traded. So like a couple of months before. And Teppo Numminen won the silver with Finland in 2006 while he was on the Sabres, but did not win gold. So I think Hasek and Schmelik are the last time and maybe the only time. So rest of these teams, Czechia, as I was talking about. Czechia, I don't know. Like, I struggle with them a little bit in goal and the blue line. They've got Pastrnak, but Pastrnak, Nichis, and Tomas Hertl. I like that line a lot. There's almost nothing else I think is dangerous in their group. And again, like that's not too different than Germany, but odds-wise, Czechia is way above Germany, and I don't think they have the goaltending, and they don't have one defenseman that's as good as Moritz Seider. They've got Radko Gudas and Filip Hronek. I guess you could argue Hronek's been good this year, but not as good as Seider. So I like Germany more, but Czechia, of course, they're a threat to medal. And the one other team that I think is capable of medaling would be Switzerland. Switzerland has more NHLers at this Olympics than they ever have. They have 10 NHLers. Kevin Fiala, Nico Hischier, Philip Kurashev, Timo Meyer, Nito Niederreiter, Pius Suter, and there were a couple others. Roman Josi, of course, on the blue line. J.J. Moser's had a good year for Tampa, and Jonas Siegenthaler. Akira Schmidt in goal. Backup goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights. 10 NHLers for Switzerland. But who's the best one? Right? Like, they have good ones, but there's no Draisaitl. There's no Pastrnak. They've got Timo Meyer, you probably say. Timo Meyer and Nico Hischier would be your best two players, and they're very good. Like, they're bubble all-star level players, but you don't have one elite guy, and that's fine. Like, Roman Josi used to be that. You could win a medal. You could get third with 10 NHL players if you get the depth to kind of all contribute together, and you get Schmidt to hopefully have a good run goaltending-wise if he does start. So Switzerland, I would say, another team that has a chance to medal, given that they have the depth. Nobody else, I would say, has a chance. Slovakia, it's just nothing left. The days of the Hosas and Chara, like they don't have guys anymore. Tomas Tatar is their captain, and they've got Juraj Slafkovsky. That's about it. It's not much else. Latvia, right? They're just gritty guys, Gergensons and Teddy Bluger. Nothing really interesting there. I mean, if Elvis Merzlikins or Artur Silvos in goal went nuts, guess they could upset somebody. They play in the U.S. group. Latvia, Germany, and Denmark. I don't think Latvia beats... I mean, they maybe beat Denmark, but I would pick them to lose to Germany, and I would obviously pick them to lose to the U.S. So My predictions for the Olympics. I think the U.S. wins Group C. Working backwards here. I think Sweden will win Group B easily. I actually think their group is very easy. Finland is not as good. Slovakia stinks to me, and Italy is an afterthought. And Canada, of course, would pick to win Group A. My 3 medalists. Projections. I'll go kind of chalk here. If I were going to pick without the odds, I'm going U.S. to win the gold, Canada to win the silver, and Sweden to win the bronze. However, dark horse pick, as I mentioned, Germany to win the bronze. I think they got a shot at it, and I'm betting it. But if that's, of course, because of the odds. All right, cannot wait. The schedule, if you're wondering, for Wednesday, 10:40 a.m. Eastern Time, Finland and Slovakia. That's our first game. And then at 3:10, probably a stomping, Sweden over Italy, likely to happen. Italy's got home ice, but whatever. And then Thursday morning, 6:10 a.m. for France and Switzerland, 10:40 for Canada and Czechia, 3:10, 2 games going on. You've got Germany and Denmark, but at the same time, U.S. and Latvia. U.S. and Latvia is the opening game. And then the U.S. will play again on Saturday against Denmark at 3:10, and we'll be off and running by then. All right. That's your Olympics. Go Tage, go Dahlin. The Dahlin story would be great, but hopefully Team USA brings home the gold for the first time since 1980. That'll do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Next show, we're going to talk a lot about, I kind of teased this last week, trade targets. Tomorrow, we're going to be all about trade targets. Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, Logan Stanley. You know, there's a lot of blue liners that I've got listed out here to get to. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And you got an Olympic take. Feel free to get it through. If you want to get into our Discord, you want to get ad-free version of the show, be sure to check out lockedonsabres.supercast.com and sign up for our Every Bears Club. Talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network.